So can you want to explain what a 4-to-1 split means for Apple? What is that?
Yeah. So what a stock split is when you have X number of stock, every company gets to decide how many shares of stock they have. There's no rules about it. You can have one, although that would make things complicated if you have more than one shareholder. Or you can have 1 billion shares. Really, the company just 100% decides. So those shares are out there on the public market. And then sometimes for various reasons, usually it's that the price of an individual share of stock is getting too expensive, or they want to shift their ownership around a little. They can just, it's a purely legal method of splitting a share of stock from one into however many they want. So she asked about Apple, where they went from 1 to 4. So a given share of stock that I own, let's say of Apple, is just split into quarters, and I overnight own 4 shares of Apple for that one. And so the total amount of actual shares has quadrupled, but the pie is the same size. The total actual ownership of the company is the same size. Everybody just owns 4 times as many actual shares as they used to. And by doing that, the price of each individual share conceivably would be cut into 4 as well. What tends to happen in the public markets is other things, but that is the legal version of it.
At least immediately it gets cut into quarters.
Yeah, that's right.
The next day when it opens up after the stock split, it is absolutely perfectly cut into quarters at the open.
Correct.
And then all kinds of fun things happen. Okay, that's very good. That's exactly what I'd hoped would happen when I sent you to law school.
You sent me to, please.
Okay,
can we have a little more respect for?
Okay, when you chose to go to law school. All right, so it's so interesting because Meg's problem isn't that she doesn't understand the stock split thing.
No, not at all.
Did that
she
for
sounded
everybody.
like she got it. Yeah,
she got that totally. It's that in fact that she understands it quite well, and that creates a problem. She's thinking, I'm looking at historical data that goes back 10, 20 years, and that data is, today I'm looking at it the day before the stock split, and it is historical based on the number of shares. If it's historically, on a per share data basis, then it is absolutely dependent on the number of shares that are outstanding, or that are basically out there in the market. And so her question is, after they split it into quarters, how can I rely on data that isn't accurate anymore? It's 4 times too high. Effectively. And that is exactly a wonderful question because it does say you understand what's going on. So good on Whidbey Island. Way to go. That's kind of up where I spent a lot of time in my youth.
Oh, is it? I was wondering where it was.
Yeah. It was
around Washington?
It's right outside Seattle, Puget Sound. Cool. It's really one of the great places to live, Whidbey Island. Its own little place. In the Banana Belt.
Lovely.
They have sunshine when Seattle's raining.
Extra lovely.
Oh, it is really nice out there. So any case, what happens, Meg, is that this is the great advantage of having data providers, because what they do is the moment that there's an announcement there's going to be a stock split is they prepare to change all of the data to reflect the new number of shares. So they actually go back and recalculate all of the data as deep as it goes, as far back as it goes, in light of the new number of shares. So immediately, with quality data providers, immediately when the stock opens and you go to the historical data, you will see that it reflects this 4-to-1 split. Everything will have been cut in by 4, divided by 4. Now that is everything except the old original documents. They are going to show the shares that existed in that year or in that quarter. So when you go to the original documents, you will see per share stuff going on there that won't be reflected in the compiled data that we use on the internet. And it is one of the great advantages of the internet. Man alive, is that stuff tough to do before the internet came along. Even Value Line would have all kinds of things they'd have to do. They'd have to put notes in the back of all the documents that they're sending to tell you that those documents are no longer accurate, that they've just divided everything by 4 in your head, right? Stuff like
Wow.
that.
Yeah.
But now it's just automatic and we don't even hardly think about it, Meg. So it's just make sure you're getting data from a good provider, which would mean any of the ones that are big out there are getting fed that information correctly.
Also, I tend to use whole numbers is how I think about it, which is a weird term, I guess. I tend to use like numbers that apply to the entire company and are not per share in my calculations because
Great point.
I do it because I really want to have the mindset of thinking about the entire company always. And as an owner of the entire company, I want to know what's going on with the whole thing. So my numbers I don't actually really, I'm trying to think of like where I use per share and it's very rare. So my numbers really wouldn't change at all. Just because there's a stock split. So that's like also if you're creating a spreadsheet and you're tracking it on your own, that's a way to not be subject to these really like artificial changes that are being done.
Now, one more way to go with this is what we do on our toolbox, which is the tool set I built for me to play with and our students use. This just saved me time. And that is I take the current number of shares and I divide it all the way back historically. And in other words, when I want to look at the per share data back in 2006, I want to see it in light of today's shares. Like, how does this company look effectively doing what Danielle's doing, except doing it on a per share basis? I'm looking at the real number, but just divided by the current number of shares. And
Wait, I don't understand that. So you take like what? Give me an example. What do you mean?
Okay, well, let's say Apple has 1,000 shares, and they
Like
split
today
4 to
or-
1 into
okay.
4,000 shares, right?
Okay.
Okay, so the historical data on most websites is going to reflect a 4 to 1 split. True?
Yeah.
Okay. But a 4 to 1 split based on the number of shares that were available in that year back in 2006. So if in 2006, Apple only had 500 shares, a 4 to 1 split's going to make 2,000 shares. Right? And today they've got 4,000 shares. So you'll look back at the data that is divided into earnings per share. It's being divided by those 2,000 shares. And that gives you to me, it gives you a misleading view of what's going on in the company. Just as
You're saying the internet site will automatically use the 2,000 shares? Or
Right,
the
they're
internet
gonna-
site will automatically use the 4,000 shares?
they're
for
going to
2006.
divide by, well, they're not going to use any specific number of shares. What they're going to do is divide by 4.
Oh, I got you. Okay, yeah. Yeah.
So if there were 2,000 shares, or if there were 500, they're going to multiply by 4.
So whatever it
and you get
was, it's
2,000.
times, yeah.
Yeah, it's times 4. So whatever it was times 4. Now that gives you an earnings per share view of the world in that year, but it doesn't give you an owner's view.
Which I think also what you're saying is, without having said it exactly, is that in this example, between 2006 and now, they created 500 additional shares.
Right.
So they took the company from having 500 shares to having 1,000 shares,
Right.
which is very important to those shareholders of the 500 shares because they just got diluted by 50%.
Exactly. You don't see the historical dilution when you don't plug the new number in all the way back. The historical dilution, so if you're using 2,000 shares back in 2006 after the split, and you're getting $1 per share of earnings, you're going to be tricked into thinking those earnings were better than they were in today's view of the world. So if we look at it through the lens of 4,000 shares, we're going to see that, the earnings are actually 50 cents back in 2006 relative to today. And then we can calculate the growth properly, which is what we're really interested in. How have the earnings been growing? Well, if you're faked out by having the wrong number of shares back then, you're going to get a wrong number. And a lot of what happens on these databases is they gift you a wrong number, a wrong growth number. And that's exactly why these guys buy back their stock. That's exactly why they want to talk to you entirely in terms of earnings per share. It's exactly why you don't, or really should be, one of the reasons why you don't use earnings per share, is because you're not letting them fool you into thinking the growth is better than it is.
You guys, if you enjoyed this video and you feel it was valuable in teaching you more about how to invest, hit the like button and please share the video with your friends. And if you want more investing content, subscribe to my channel. And don't forget to click the button on the screen. We got a free gift for you. Thanks again for watching.